Shalom, shalom, everybody. Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo, man. It's Shilo. What's up? Hope y'all having a wonderful day today. Shit. It's about to storm down here. It's about to storm down here. So, but before it storms, we will go ahead and get into the next section of this reading. The Souls of Black Folks by W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois, man. We are on chapter 5. We're moving through this book pretty well. If it's your first time, coming in, as I'm reading, and I'm going through the book, and I may come across words that I don't know, or words I can't really pronounce that well, we will look them up. We're gonna look them up. We're gonna look them up and see what they mean. But let's get started with chapter 5 so we can see if there's anything that we can learn and grow from. Anything that we can use to learn and grow from in chapter 5. Of the Wings of Atlanta. Of the Wings of Atlanta. So let me see. Might have to start writing down some of these words. Let's see. Might have to start writing down some of these words. So let's jump into it. Let's dive right into chapter 5 and see what we got. Of the Wings of Atlanta. O black boy of Atlanta, but half was spoken. The slaves' chains and the masters alike are broken. The one curse of the races held both in tether. They are rising. All are rising. The blacks and white together. Whittier by Whittier. South of the north, yet north of the south, lies the cities of 100 hills, peering out from the shadows of the past into the promise of the future. I have seen her in the morning, when the first flush of day had half roused her. She lay gray and still on the crimson soil of Georgia. Then the blue smoke began to curl from her chimneys. The tinkle of bell and scream, the whistle broke the silence. The rattle and roar of busy life slowly gathered and swelled, until the seething whirl of the city seemed a strange thing in a sleepy land. Once they say, even Atlanta slept dull and drowsy at the foothills of the Alleghanies, until the iron baptism of war awakened her with its sullen waters, arose and maddened her, and left her listening to the sea. And the sea cried to the hills, and the hills answered the sea, till the city rose like a widow and cast away her weeds, and toiled for her daily bread, toiled steadily, toiled cunningly, perhaps with some bitterness, with a touch of reclaim, and yet with real earnestness and real sweat. It's a hard thing to live haunted by the ghost of the untrue dream. To see the wide vision of empire fade into real ashes and dirt. To feel the pang of the conquered, and yet know that with all the bad that fell that one black day, something was vanquished that deserved to live. Something killed that injustice had not dared to die. To know that with the right that triumphed something of wrong, something sorrowed and mean, something less than the broadest and best. All this is bitter hard, and many a man and city and people have found in it excuse of sulking and brooding and listless waiting. Such are not men of the sturdier make. They of Atlanta turned resolutely toward the future, and the future held aloft vistas of purple and gold. Atlanta, queen of the cotton kingdom. Atlanta, gateway to the land of the sun. Atlanta, the new leashness, spinner of web and woof for the world. So the city crowned her 100 hills with factories and stored her shops with cunning handiwork and stretched long iron ways to greet the busy Mercury in his coming. Excuse me. And the nation talked of her striving. Perhaps Atlanta was not christened for the winged maiden of dull Boautia, 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 Boautia. It looks like it's a name. Boeotia, Boautia. Let me see if I can look it up right here. The maiden of dull Boautia. Excuse me. Boautia. At least that's how I'm pronouncing it. B-E-O. Boautia. It's not in here. It's not in here. You know the tale. How swarthy Atlanta, tall and wild, would marry only him who outraced her, and who, the willing Hipponus, laid 3 apples of gold in the way. I have to see who that is too. Hipponus. She fled like a shadow, paused, startled, hovered over the second, then slipping from his hot grasp, flew over her, and looking on each other. The blazing passion of their love profaned the sanctuary of love. And they were cursed. If Atlanta be not named for Atlanta, she ought to have been. That's something interesting too. That's something interesting too. Atlanta is not the first or the last maiden whom greed of gold has led to defile the temple of love. And not maids alone, but men in the race of life sink from the high and generous ideals of youth and the gambler's code of the Bourse. And in all our nations striving, is not the gospel of work defiled by the gospel of pay? So common is this that one half think it normal, so unquestioned, that we almost fear the question if the end of racing is not gold, if the aim of man is not rightly to be rich, and if this is the fault of America, who dare who dare a danger lies before the new land and the new city, lest Atlanta, stooping of mere gold, shall find that gold accursed. It was no maiden's idle whim that started this hard racing. A fearful wilderness lay about the feet of the city after the war. Feudalism, poverty, the rise of the third estate, serfdom, and the rebirth of law and order. And above and between it all, the veil of race. How heavy a journey for weary feet. What wings must Atlanta have to flit over all the hollow and hill? Through through sour wood and sullen water, and by the red waste of sun-baked clay. How fleet must Atlanta be if she will be tempted by gold to profane the sanctuary? The sanctuary of our fathers has, to be sure, for few gods. Some sneer, all too few. There is 30 Mercury of New England, Pluto of the North, and Sears of the West. And there too is the half forgotten Apollo of the South, under whose aegis the maiden ran. And as she ran, she forgot him, even as there in Boeotia, Venus was forgotten. I guess all these is Greek gods. Boeotia must be a Greek god. Let me see if I got it. Let me see if I have it in my encyclopedia. Boeotia. B-O-E-O. B-O-E-O. E-O. B-O-E. B-O-E. Boatia. It is in here. Let's see what Boatia means or is. Boeotia. 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 Department in central Greece. It has an area of 1,225 square miles. The capital is Lavadia. Other important towns are Arakova, where rugs and woolens are manufactured, and Thebes. The main crops are corn, cereal, legumes, olives, grapes, and tobacco. Cattle raising is an important industry. Boeotia is separated from Attica on the south by Mount Cithrion, and Mount Parnes. Who is she? Who is she? So it's a Greek city. Boeotia or Boeotia is a Greek city in central Greece. A department in central Greece. She forgot the old ideal of the Southern gentleman, the New World hair of the grace and courtliness of precision, of patrician, of knight and noble. Forgot his honor with his foiblesse, his kindliness with his carelessness, and stooped to apples of gold. The men bruiser and sharper, thriftier, and more unscrupulous. Golden apples are beautiful. I remember the lawless days of boyhood when orchards and crimson and gold tempted me over fence and field. And to the merchant who was betrothed, the planter, is no despicable parvenu. Parvenu is no despicable parvenu. 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 No despicable parvenu. A parvenu. A person who has suddenly risen from comparative poverty and obscurity to wealth. I think that would be like somebody who won the lottery. Somebody who was broke before and won the lottery can be considered a parvenu. A parvenu. The merchant who has betrothed the planter is no despicable person who has suddenly risen to from comparative poverty or obscurity to wealth. The merchant who has betrothed the planter is no despicable parvenu. Work and wealth are the mighty levers to lift this old new world. Thrift and toil and saving are the highways to new hopes and new possibilities. And yet the warning is needed lest the wily hipponists tempt Atlanta to thinking that golden apples are the gold of racing and not mere incidents by the way. Atlanta must not lead the South to dream of material prosperity as the touchstone of all success. Already the fatal might of this idea is beginning to spread. It is replacing the finer type of Southerner with vulgar money getters. It is buying the sweater beauties of Southern life beneath pretense of ostentation. For every social ill, the panacea of wealth, panacea, Panacea, the panacea of wealth the cure for all ills, a universal remedy. The For the social ill, the cure or panacea of wealth has been urged. Wealth to overthrow the remains of the slave feudalism, wealth to raise the cracker, third estate, wealth to employ the black serfs, and the prospect of wealth to keep them working. Wealth as the end and aim of politics and as the legal tender for law and order. And finally, instead of truth, beauty, and goodness, wealth as the ideal of the public schools. Not only is this true in the world which Atlanta typifies, but it is threatening to be true of the world beneath and beyond that world, the black world beyond the veil. Today, it makes little difference to Atlanta, to the South, what the Negro thinks or dreams or wills. In the sole life of the land, he is today and naturally will long remain unthought of and half forgotten. And yet, when he does come to think and will or do for himself, and not let man dream that day will never come, then the part he plays will not be one of sudden learning, but words and thoughts he has been taught by lisp in his race childhood. Today, the firmament of his strivings towards self realization is to the strife of the white world like the wheel within the wheel. Beyond the veil are smaller, but like problems of ideals, of leaders and the lead, of serfdom and poverty, of order and subordination, and through all the veil of race. Few know of these problems, few who know notice them, and yet they are there. Await student, artist, and seer, a field for somebody sometime to discover. Hither is the temptation of hippo menace. Here is the temptation of hippo menace. Here is a temptation. Hither is the temptation of hippo menace penetrated already in this smaller world, which now indirectly and anon directly must influence the larger for good or ill. The habit is forming of interpreting the world in dollars. The old leaders of Negro opinion in little groups where there is a Negro social consciousness are being replaced by new. Neither the black preacher nor the black teacher leads as he did 2 decades ago. Into their places are pushing the farmers and gardeners, the well-paid potters and artisans, the businessmen, all those who property, all those with property and money. It's still that way. It still seems that way. Now everybody's talking about money these days, and I guess this is where they're getting it from. I guess this is when it started to change over. And with all of this change, so curiously parallel to that of the other world, goes to the same inevitable change in ideals. The South laments today the slow, steady disappearance of a certain type of Negro, the faithful, the courteous slave of other days, with the uncorruptible honesty and dignified humility. He is passing away just as surely as the old type of Southern gentleman is passing. And from not dissimilar causes, the sudden transformation of the fair, far off ideal of freedom into the hard reality of bread winning and the consequent defecation of bread. In the Black world, the preacher and teacher embodied once the ideals of this people, the strife for another and the juster world, the vague dream of righteousness, the mystery of knowing. But today, the danger is that these ideals, with their simple beauty and weird inspiration, will suddenly sink to a question of cash and a lust for gold. Here stands this black young Atlanta, girding herself for the race that must be run. And if her eyes be still toward the hills and skies, as in the days of old, then we may look for noble running. But what if some ruthless or willing or other thoughtless hippomenes lay golden apples before her? What if the Negro people are bewooed from the strife for righteousness? It's already happened. from a love of knowing to regard dollars as the be all and the end all of life. What if? Yeah, let's see what they think will happen. What if the black people be wooed from a strife for righteousness, from a love of knowing to regard dollars as the be all and end all of life? You know, what if? What if? What if to the mammonism of America be adding the rising mammonism of the reborn South? And the mammonism of this South be reinforced by the budding mammonism of its half awakened black millions. Whither then is the new world quest of goodness and beauty and truth gone glimmering? Must this and that fair flower of freedom, which, despite the queers of latter-day striplings, sprung from our fathers' blood, must that too degenerate into a dusty quest of gold, into lawless lust of hippomenes? Hippomenes. The 100 hills of Atlanta are not all crowned with factories. Not one toward the west, the setting sun throws 3 buildings of bold relief against the sky. The beauty of the group lies in its simple unity. A broad lawn of green rising from the red streets with mingled roses and peaches, north and south, two plain and stately halls, and in the midst of half hidden in ivy, a larger building, boldly graceful, sparingly decorated, and with one low spire. It is a restful group. One never looks for more. It is all here, all intelligible. There I live, and there I hear from day to day the low hum of restless life. In winter's twilight, when the red sun glows, I can see the dark figures pass between the halls to the music of the night bell. In the morning, when the sun is golden, the clang of day bells brings the hurry and laughter of 300 young hearts from hall and street, and from the busy city below. Children, all dark and heavy-haired, to join their clear young voices in the music of the morning sacrifice. In a half a dozen classrooms, they gather them, here to follow the love song of Ditto, here to listen to the tale of Troy divine, there to wander among the stars, there to wander among men and nations, and elsewhere other well-worn ways of knowing this queer world. Nothing new, no time-saving devices, simply old-time glorified methods of delving for truth and searching out the hidden beauties of life and learning the good of living. The riddle of existence is the college curriculum that was laid before the pharaohs, that was taught in the groves of Plato, that formed the trivium and quadrivium, and is today laid before the freedmen's sons by Atlanta University. And this course of study will not change. Its methods will grow more deft and effectual, its content richer to toil of scholar and sight of seer. But the true college will ever have one goal, not to earn meat, but to know the end and aim of that life which meat nourishes. The visions of life that rises before these dark eyes has in it nothing mean or selfish, not in Oxford or at Leipzig, not at Yale or Columbia. Is there an air of higher resolve or more unfettered striving? The determination to realize for men, both black and white, the broadest possibilities of life, to seek the better and the best, to spread with their own hands the gospel of sacrifice. All this is the burden of their talk and dream. Here, amid a wide desert of caste and prescription, amid the heartache hurting sights and jars of vagaries of a deep race dislike, lies this green oasis where hot anger coals and bitterness of disappointment is sweetened by the springs and breezes of Parnassus. And here, men may lie and listen and learn of the future fuller than the past and hear of the voice of time. A Travernum or quadrivium. The Travernum was a group of studies consisting of grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and forming the lower division of the seven liberal arts in medieval universities. The quadrivium, the arithmetic, music, geometry, and astronomy formed the upper division. Hmm. The quadrivium and the trivium. There we go. Plato, by Plato, that formed the trivium and quadrivium. No, not yet, but it is getting dark, son. Uh, they made their mistakes, those who planted Fisk and Howard and Atlanta before the smoke of battle had lifted. They made their mistakes, but those mistakes were not the things at which we lately laughed somewhat uproariously. They were right when they sought to find or to found a new educational system upon the university, where forsooth shall we ground knowledge, saving on the broadest and deepest knowledge. The roots of the tree, rather than the leaves, are the sources of its life. And from the dawn of history, from Academius to Cambridge, the culture of the university has been the broad foundation stone on which is built the kindergartens A, B, and C's. But these builders did make a mistake in minimizing the gravity of the problem before them, in thinking it a matter of years and decades, in therefore building quickly and laying their foundation carelessly, and lowering the standard of knowing, until they had scattered haphazard through the South some dozen poorly equipped high schools and miscalled them universities. Hmm. They forgot to, just as the successors are forgetting the rule of inequality, that of the million black youth. Some were fitted to know and some to dig, that some had the talent and the capacity of university men, and some the talent and capacity of blacksmiths. And that true training meant neither that all should be college men nor all artisans, but that the one should be made a missionary of culture to an untaught people, and the other a free workman among serfs. And to seek to make the blacksmith a scholar is almost as silly as the more modern scheme of making the scholar a blacksmith. Almost, but not quite. The function of the university is not simple to teach breadwinning or to furnish teachers for the public schools or to be a center of polite society. It is, above all, to be an organ of that fine adjustment between real life and growing knowledge of life, an adjustment which forms the secret of civilization. Such an institution the South of today sorely needs. She has religion, earnest bigoted, religion that on both sides of the veil often omits the sixth, seventh, and eighth commandments, but substitutes a dozen supplementary ones. She has, as Atlanta shows, growing thrift and love of toil, but she lacks the broad knowledge of what the world knows and knew of human living and doing. Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, I like that. She has, as Atlanta shows, growing thrift and love of toil, but she lacks the broad knowledge of what the world knows and knew of human living and doing, which she may apply to the thousand problems of real life today confronting her. Hmm. Common sense shit. She lacks the common sense shit. The need of the South is knowledge and culture. Not a dainty, limited quantity as before the war, but a broad, busy abundance in the world of work. And until she has this, not all the apples of Hesperides, be thy golden or bejeweled, can save her from the curse of the Boeotian lovers. The wings of Atlanta are coming universities in the South. They alone can bear the maiden past the temptation of golden fruit. They will not guide her flying feet away from the cotton and gold. For a thoughtful Hippomenes, do not the apples lie in the very way of life? But they will guide her over and beyond them, and leave her kneeling in the sanctuary of truth and freedom and broad humanity, virgin and undefiled. Sadly, did the old South in human education, despising the education of the masses, and niggardly in the support of colleges. Her ancient and university foundations dwindled and withered under the foul breath of slavery, and even since the war, they have fought a failing fight for life in a tainted air of social unrest and commercial selfishness, stunted by the death of criticism, and starved for lack of broadly cultured men. And if this is the white South's need and danger, how much heavier is the danger and need of the freedmen's sons? How pressing here the need of broad ideals and true culture, the conservation of soul from sordid aims and petty passions. Let us build the Southern universities, William and Mary, Trinity, Georgia, Texas, Tulane, Vanderbilt, and others fit to live. Let us build to the Negro universities, Fisk, whose foundation was ever broad, Howard at the heart of the nation, Atlanta to Atlanta, whose ideal of scholarship has been held above the temptation of numbers. Why not here and perhaps elsewhere plant deeply and for all time centers of learning and living, colleges that yearly would send into the life of the South a few white men and a few black men of broad culture, Catholic tolerance, and trained ability, joining their hands to other hands and giving to his squabble of the race a decent and dignified peace. Patience, humanity, manners, and taste, common schools of kindergartners, industrial and technical schools, literature and tolerance, all these sprang from knowledge and culture. The children of the university, so much men and nations build, so must men and nations build, not otherwise, not upside down, teach workers to work. A wise saying, wise when applied to German boys and American girls, which is where they say the what's the word I'm looking for? This is where they say the foundation or the guidelines or the blueprint. That's what I'm looking for. The blueprint of schools was from the Germans, which was really to teach them how to work, teach workers to work. A wise saying, wise when applied to German boys and American girls, wiser when said of Negro boys, for they have less knowledge of working and none to teach them. Teach thinkers to think, and needed knowledge in a day of loose and careless logic, and they whose lot is gravest must have the careless training to think aright. If these things are so, how foolish to ask what is the best education for 1 or 7 or 60 million souls? Shall we teach them trades or train them in liberal arts? Neither and both. Teach the worker to work and the thinkers to think. Make carpenters of carpenters and philosophers of philosophers and fops of fools. Nor can we pause here. We are training, not isolating men, but a living group of men, nay, a group within a group. And the final product of our training must be neither a psychologist nor a brick mason, but a man. And to make a man, we must have ideals, broad, pure, and inspiring ends of living, not sordid money getting, not apples of gold. The worker must work for the glory of his handiwork, not simply for pay. The thinker must think for truth, not for fame. And all this is gained only by human strife and longing, by ceaseless training and education, by founding right and righteousness and truth on the unhampered search for truth, by founding the common school on the university and the industrial school on the common school, and weaving thus a system, not distortion, and bringing a birth, not an abortion. When night falls on the city of 100 hills, a wind gathers itself from the seas and comes murmuring westward. And at its bidding, the smoke of the drowsy factory sweep down upon the mighty city and covers it like a pall. While yonder at the university, the stars twinkle above Stone Hill, and they say that yon gray mist is the tunic of Atlanta, pausing over her golden apples. Fly, my maiden, fly, from yonder comes Hippomenes. That word, that name right there keeps getting me. Hippomenes. Hippomenes. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. Hippomenes. 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 What I was in. I'll look up that word. I'm gonna look up that name. I'm gonna look up that name in a minute. That was chapter 5. That was chapter 5 of The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. He said some things in there. Some things for me that made me think. Like the transition of the old time thought process to the transition of money being the end all and the be all. That was something that made me think. The teachings of money being the end all and be all. It definitely is still that thought today. The thought that the common sense, there we go, here we go. What if the Negro people be wooed from a strife for righteousness, for a love of knowing to regard dollars as the be all and the end all of life? What if? We could see the answer to that what if. We could see that answer to the what if today on how Black people act on the so-called gender war as well between men and women. The striving for, so say, equal pay, equal rights, wanting to be unified, or not unified, but on the same footing, wanting the same outcomes. Everything centers around money. Money, 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 money. Money, money, money. Money. Everything centers around money. The common sense way of living, being able to be self-sufficient, is really no longer there. It is, but it's few and far in between. You have certain people who still want to live that way, who still have the mindset of being able to do for self and not really depending on others or depending on what money can buy. Don't get me wrong, money is a defense. It is a defense, and it is well needed in times, especially these days when they talked about the money in the court system, because the court system needs that money. You can't afford to pay for stuff like divorces or lawyers or a whole bunch of stuff when it comes with the money. Say you want to build your house. The way people build today, if you don't know how to build it yourself, how are you going to afford a contractor? When you die, how are you going to afford the casket? The casket that you'll be buried in without the money as a defense. But it is not the end all be all. At least not in my mind, it isn't. It is a defense, but not the end all be all. It's good to have, but when the money is gone, you can look at the trend. They say the dollar is failing. If the dollar does fail, what good is your money then? All this millions that you've earned, what good is it then? If bread was to go to $200 a loaf, what good is your money then? It's better for you to know how to bake your own bread, in my mind. It's better for you to know how to make your own bread, to grow your own foods, catch, kill, cooking your own animals, grow your herds like they used to do before in times past. These are the things that we still need to know. How to make the things that you may need. These are the things that we still need to know. I understand the concept of making a scholar a blacksmith and a blacksmith a scholar. You shouldn't do that. I understand that concept. But the know-how of how to do the things that will be needed is a necessity in my thought process. It's a necessity in my mind. If the lights go out, can you make do with that? What can you do? What will you do? Can you survive? Or will you be in the line at Walmart looking for a handout from FEMA or the government, period? Have you used the stories of old, like the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine in the Bible, to prepare yourself for things that may come? You might lose your job. You might get hurt. You might not be able to work. They might not have food. It might be a shortage. It might be a famine. Are you prepared for it? Are you going to be able to move your family through the minefield that's going to be ever in your path? That is the question. That is the question. And a lot of people think that money is going to save them, that the money is going to get them to be able to cut the line and circumvent the things that are going to be, necessary for your survival. But money doesn't always work that way. But yeah, once again, that was chapter 5. That was chapter 5, and that's it for this session of Reading with Shilo. Man, these words in this book, man, they so small. They so small. So I apologize for the stumbling over words and trying to. They so small to me. I might need glasses. I might need some glasses. These words are so small, but we're gonna push through, man. We're gonna push through, and we'll come back next time with chapter 6. Chapter 6 of the training of black men. I like the sound of that. I really like the sound of that. If it's anything like how it talked about the things that were going on in Atlanta, I would like to know about the things that are going on in the training of black men. What is the training? Because they say we need both. We need both, trained to be thinkers and trained to be workers. They say we need a marriage of both, which I believe. I believe so. So I hope that there's something that you found that you could all heard that you could learn and grow from within the reading. Definitely some stuff for me to think on. Definitely stuff that I'm already applying that, hopefully people elsewhere can apply. Something we can learn and grow from Mr. W.E.B. Du Bois in the soul of black folk. But till next time, man, that's Shilo out. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you pull something from it. I hope you can deal with like I said, the stumbling over the words with this small print. I definitely need some larger print books, but we'll keep pushing. We'll keep pushing. And until next time, man, Shilo out. Shilo out. I hope y'all have a nice night. Shalom, everybody.